All right, welcome everyone to this explainer. If you've ever looked at the absolutely booming economy in Vietnam and thought, man, I want to start a business there, you've probably also hit a massive wall of dense, confusing legal jargon. Well, today we are going to completely demystify Vietnam's 2020 investment law. We're going to take all those heavy legal texts, the decrees, the articles, and transform them into a clear, actionable roadmap designed specifically for global investors like you. Let's get right into it.
So before we even touch the paperwork, we have to address the absolute biggest myth and honestly the most intimidating hurdle that expats face when looking at the Vietnamese market. The burning question: can a foreigner actually open a company in Vietnam entirely on their own?
Okay, let's dive into this, because the answer is a massive, resounding yes. Based directly on Article 3 of the 2020 investment law, the legal framework explicitly grants you independent investor status. No way around it. This means you do not need a local Vietnamese partner, and you don't even need to already own a company back in your home country. You, as a solo individual, have the full power to step right into this market.
So here is exactly how we'll navigate this terrain together today. First, your right to establish a company. Second, navigating market access tiers. Third, unlocking the investment registration certificate. Fourth, enterprise and labor rules. And finally, we'll wrap up with your step-by-step roadmap and pro tips.
Starting with Section 1, the right to establish a company. This is your legal baseline.
Clause 19. Article 3 of the law is crystal clear. It states, foreign investors include individuals with foreign nationality, carrying out business investment activities in Vietnam. Listen, this simple sentence is your absolute shield. It is your foundation. It proves your legal standing. As a foreign individual, you are officially recognized as a foreign investor with the complete right to establish an independent entity. You aren't operating in some legal gray area here. You are written directly into the foundational economic law of the country.
Let's move on to Section 2, Market Access Classification, which means navigating Decree 31 from 2021.
And this brilliantly illustrates the landscape, because before you pack your bags and book a flight to Ho Chi Minh City or Hanoi, you've got to understand the rules of the specific terrain you want to enter. The Vietnamese government basically categorizes your business ideas into a straightforward three-tier system. Tier 1, that's prohibited. These are sectors completely closed off to foreign individuals. Just don't even try. Tier 3, all the way down at the bottom, is unrestricted. For these sectors, you are treated exactly like a domestic Vietnamese investor. No special hurdles at all. But right in the middle, Tier 2, is conditional. This is where most foreign investors find themselves. It means you're allowed in, for sure, but you have to play by a very specific set of rules.
So if your dream business falls into that conditional bucket, what exactly are those conditions? Well, they typically revolve around four main factors. First, ownership limits, meaning, you might only be allowed to own maybe 49% or 70% of the company rather than 100%. Second, restrictions on the actual form of investment. Third, the specific scope of operations you're legally allowed to conduct. And fourth, investor capacity, where you might literally have to prove specific expertise or form certain partnerships. Basically, these are the game rules you need to prep for before filing a single document.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Investment Registration Certificate. Unlocking that first big key. Okay, once you know your sector is clear, we enter the bureaucratic phase. And you are going to hear the acronym IRC constantly. The Investment Registration Certificate is the absolute mandatory preliminary approval you need under Article 22 before you can actually register a company. Think of it like the government's ultimate permission slip saying, yes, your specific business project is approved to exist on our soil. Now, the only exception to this rigorous step is if you're forming a small and medium-sized enterprise, innovative startup under some very specific support laws. But otherwise, the IRC is an absolute must.
So you need to know exactly what ammunition to bring to the battle to get this IRC. Here's your game plan. You need your passport, obviously, but it must be properly legalized by the consulate. You'll need a bank balance confirmation, and here's the real kicker. That bank account must prove you have the actual financial capacity to fund your proposed investment. They want to see the real money. You also need a super detailed investment proposal outlining your goals, your scale, the economic impact, and your specific land use needs if you're, say, renting an office or a factory space.
Moving right along to Section 4, Enterprise and Labor Rules, getting your ERC and building your team.
So you submit all those documents, you wait it out, and once that IRC key finally turns, the next step is actually forming the corporate entity to get your Enterprise Registration Certificate, or ERC. Now this step is way more straightforward. You submit the application form, your list of members or shareholders, a meticulously drafted company charter, and again, those legalized IDs. This is the paperwork that literally transforms you from a proposed project into an actual, legally breathing Vietnamese company.
Now, what's really interesting about this next phase is this specific number, 3 billion VND. Pause for a second and take that in, because it represents a massive operational advantage for you as a foreign founder. Why? Because that 3 billion Vietnamese dong is the magic threshold for a work permit exemption. According to Decree 152, if you are the owner of an LLC or a board member of a joint stock company, and your capital contribution actually hits that 3 billion VND mark, you are entirely exempt from the massive headache of securing a standard work permit. You literally bypass months of extra bureaucracy. It is a game changer. But, what if you don't hit that exact capital threshold? Or what if you just need to bring in foreign talent? Well, Decree 152 has other exemptions to give you that operational agility. For instance, internal corporate transfers within 11 specific WTO committed service sectors, we're talking IT, finance, education, those can be exempt. Or, if you need an expert to fly in just for a quick project, they're exempt if they work under 30 days at a time, up to 3 times a year. It's really all about structuring your team smartly within these legal boundaries. And that brings us to Section 5, your roadmap and recommendations. Let's build your execution battle plan. We've covered a tremendous amount of dense legal ground today, so let's move to the timeline and see how this actually builds chronologically. Step 1 is your market review, checking those access conditions. Give yourself a solid 1 to 3 days for this. Step 2 is submitting that heavy paperwork for the IRC approval. Expect this to take about 15 working days. Step 3, the ERC issuance to officially form the company. That's a much faster 3 to 6 working days. And finally, Step 4 is post-establishment, setting up your bank accounts, tax registration, getting your company seal made, budget about 5 to 10 days for that. This right here is your realistic step-by-step timeline from start to finish.
Now, to ensure you don't hit any fatal bureaucratic roadblocks, here are some absolutely crucial pro tips pulled directly from our source material. First, always cross-check your business with Vietnam's WTO commitments, because that entirely dictates your market access. Second, get your financial proofs legalized early. Please do not wait until the last minute. Third, if you can swing it, aim for that 3 billion VND threshold to save yourself the whole work permit hassle. Fourth, and trust me, this trips up a lot of people, never use a residential apartment for your headquarters. Your commercial lease must be 100% legal and clear. And finally, simply because of the incredibly strict requirements for legalized translations and proper legal drafting, hire professional legal consultants on the ground to guide you through.
Look, it is a structured journey, for sure, but the path is entirely laid out for you in the law. You absolutely have the power to do this independently. Just remember to consult those local legal professionals to tailor this roadmap to your specific, unique case. The legal doors are wide open, and the roadmap is right here in your hands. So the only question left for you is, what groundbreaking idea are you going to bring to the Vietnamese market?